Hello biscuits! It's Cupcake Kami-sama back here and welcome to another video. This one is of the show and tell variety and it could potentially be helpful if you're still trying to think of some Lolita fashion related goals or resolutions for the new year, as it may help convince you to start making your clothes fit you better. The topic of altering Lolita fashion clothing is gradually becoming less of a taboo within the Lolita fashion community, though it's still far from normalized. Unfortunately, whilst the upside of the internet is that we are exposed to views that normalize good things, like accepting that clothes should fit your body and not the other way around, the bad side is that old ideas still linger in there and are just as easy for people to find. The best thing we can do is to put these good things out there more and more so that the positive views are amplified and push the outdated ones further down Google's search results. This is what this video is here for, to show you that alterations are perfectly fine and to normalize altering your clothes. You dropped your cash on those beauties, it would be a shame not to wear them. So here are all the pieces that I have had altered and what the process was like for each of them. Going in chronological order, my first tentative foray into getting my Lolita dresses altered was my very first Lolita dress, Bodyline's L262 JSK. The original design, as you can see on the stock picture, was a halter neck. Yet as much as I love a halter neck design, not only is it hard to find a blouse to work with that kind of neckline, this particular one had to be tied every time the dress was worn. Tying a bow at the back of your neck yourself rarely results in a pretty bow, and even if it was pretty, it was always very bulky and got in the way. Reluctant to sell the dress, I was fortunate enough that the mom of my boyfriend at the time was a proficient seamstress and kindly offered to do the alteration for me. The halter straps were turned into regular straps, and as this is a patterned fabric rather than a custom printed one, it's very easy to hide that kind of alteration. She even used the excess leftover fabric to make a bow hair tie out of, which is both extra cute and extra resourceful. No waste whatsoever. A good number of years passed between this very first alteration that got me a bit more comfortable with the process and the next one, which was on my jewelry box JSK from a Chinese brand called Resailan. I had an idea of what I wanted to achieve, namely to lower the waistline, which to me seemed a bit more involved, and I wanted to get someone a bit more knowledgeable about Lolita fashion specifically to get it done. As luck would have it, the owner of a no longer existing UK Lolita brand called Shinku Rose was also able to do alterations. I managed to catch her before she wrapped up Shinku Rose and she agreed to help with the alteration. I can't remember how much it cost now. I want to say somewhere between 60 and 80 British pounds, which, considering the amount of work that went into it, was more than reasonable. The waist ties were sacrificed and refashioned into a faux belt along with some additional matching fabric. That same matching fabric was also used at the back to extend the panel of shirring, and I was also given a bow pin in that fabric to use as I saw fit, be it at the back instead of waist ties, at the front for some extra interest, or anywhere else a large bow might be pinned to. The alteration, in my mind, improved the dress design, and the use of velvet made the dress feel fancier than it was before. Though the main difference is that now it's a dress that is worn, as opposed to one that I avoided wearing because of the cut being unflattering on me. After another several years, once the first wave of the pandemic started to ease a little, I hit what would be the start of my wave of getting pieces altered. I bought this Alice and the Pirates jacket as a set with the matching shorts off Mercari early during the pandemic. Whilst the shorts were listed as women's size, so they were never going to fit me, the jacket was listed as men's size. To this day, I haven't been able to find this set on the library, giving me no way of confirming how true that could have been. Nonetheless, once it arrived, the jacket proved to still be a bit too small. However, armed with shorts that I was more than willing to sacrifice, I began to look for someone locally to do the alteration and found a bridal dress alterations shop. After reading a bunch of reviews for that shop in particular, as well as seeing a number of Lolitas mention that bridal alterations are better for altering Lolita fashion than some quick fix shop, I decided to give him a go. The alteration was surprisingly cheap, around £35 to my memory, though in hindsight I should have pushed for something better. What the staff at the shop did was simply add a panel to the back to make the jacket bigger. And it did make it bigger, however, by likely being cut for a masculine shape, what I actually needed was probably some side panels to make room for my chest. It isn't entirely my fault for not pushing, as an experienced seamstress should have noticed that straight away and suggested that as a solution, but for the price of £35 and the alteration being done within a week, as well as no postage costs involved, I got what I paid for. There is still fabric left in those shorts, so one day, maybe when I am more proficient with sewing, I can do that myself. If anything, this experience has taught me that with dresses, I definitely would prefer to leave the alterations up to people who understood Lolita fashion on a deeper level as wearers, not just on a theoretical one as seamstresses. Therefore, for altering my Royal Unicorn switching JSK from Angelic Pretty, I turned to a local Lolita who used to go by Dreamy Rin and whose current handle I can't seem to find. She is a trained tailor, with plenty of experience in altering her own clothes, as well as making some from scratch. And seeing as this was a simpler case of fitting something to my size, I reached out to her via Instagram. In the end, the alteration cost me £50 plus domestic postage costs, which to my mind is a great deal. What the alteration did was use the waist ties to add some extra room in the sides, as well as lengthen the straps a little to make the whole dress sit a little lower, making the waist seam hit a bit closer to my actual waist. Whilst I provided my measurements to make the alteration accurate, Dreamy Rin also ensured that this would include enough spare room for movement, eating, and, all those daily activities that we as humans do. It should be a standard with alterations, but somehow it isn't always. During the process, I received some photo updates, and had I not been pointed to where the alteration is, I would have missed it. Several other people in my local community also got some pieces altered by her, and they've all had the same fantastic level of quality work done at a reasonable price and with excellent communication throughout. So, whilst this is purely anecdotal, it goes to show that a reliable and accessible alteration service is definitely in demand. Which brings us to the final alteration that I've had done to date, and that is on Meta's Gold Braid Tuck Pinafore JSK. If we're completely honest, although this dress fit me from the moment I got it, the way it was cut meant that it wasn't always the most flattering fit. As my body changed with age and lifestyle, it became downright uncomfortable. So it was time to alter it. By that point, Dreamy Rin was not accepting alterations to focus on other things, but a friend from my com had just gotten one of their pieces altered by Nadine Atelier, who is based in Sweden, so I reached out to her. This is the most expensive alteration that I've had done at just under £220. At the same time, it feels the most professional as it was preceded by a very thorough and informative video call consultation, as well as pretty involved given that the dress was taken apart, to insert a brand new panel of shirring, and some of the back pleating was then gathered to fit. And as anyone who has had experience with altering meta will know, unpicking the seams alone is a hefty job because meta is built to bloody last. Although I was willing to sacrifice the waist size, in the end Nadine found a fabric that was a damn near perfect colour match to make the shirring panel out of, which meant that I could keep the waist size. The alteration itself was done extremely quickly, done within about 2 weeks. It's postage to and from Sweden that dragged the process out into something that went on from about September 4th until November 10th, counting up until I actually received the dress in my hands. But I genuinely could not have been happier with how it fits now and how the whole process went. If you're in Europe or outside and don't mind posting to Sweden and need a fantastic alteration service, I cannot recommend Nadine Atelier highly enough. Check her Instagram if you don't believe me. She's done some incredible alterations, some far more involved than mine, that look absolutely perfect. These 5 alterations that I have had done over the years are pretty different from each other in terms of what was done and how, but the end result of having a wearable garment is all the same. I am very happy whenever I see or hear others talk about the alterations they've done to their Lolita items. Some have done things themselves, some have entrusted their garments to someone locally, and some find Lolita seamstresses offering alteration services. Fashion is not supposed to be one size fits all. It was made to order and made to measure for most of history, and even in the early days of mass production, tailoring and alteration services were common to get your clothes fitted to you. We will likely never see a full return to that in mainstream fashion, but in my opinion, it increases the longevity as well as accessibility of Lolita by ensuring that we truly buy clothes to keep and have as many potential buyers as possible if we decide to sell them on. It likely still won't convince everyone, and in truth, there are many who don't need to alter their clothing in order to have the right fit, but if this video has encouraged those who were already considering going down that route to commit to it, then that's all that I hope for. In the end, I've seen way more alteration success stories than alteration horror ones, which says far more than I could. And on that note, thank you all so much for watching. I do truly hope that you have found this video useful and interesting. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, comment on it, subscribe to the channel. Sharing it with someone you know who may have been debating getting something altered would also help me as well as hopefully them. And if you'd like to support my channel beyond those free means, you can do so either via a one-off tip with coffee or by joining my Patreon, which has subscriptions starting as low as $1 a month. All patrons get early access to every single post that I publish on my blog, Cupcakes and Unicorns, where you can find even more Lolita fashion related content. Thank you all again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye!